G'day.
Hi everyone and welcome to Parkside Live. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our chats on finding our way, and tonight we're looking at feeding our focus.
Yes. By way of introduction, about 15 Bretts ago, in what seems like another lifetime, I was instructing people in how to use ropes to descend cliff faces. And we were doing a particular activity in the Blue Mountains near Sydney, and there was this peak that we were doing, and it was multi-stage. The first drop walked out of the bush, and by bush it was waist to chest height, and the track ended, and a metre later the cliff started, and the first drop was 50 metres down to an area around about the size of this table. Okay. And so we had to set up our anchor systems at the top, and then someone else went first, and I was about third or fourth in the queue. We went down. When we got to this small little outcrop of rock, we looked down, and it was literally a couple of 100 metres to the bottom, and so we were moving people onto our little landing point, at the same time setting up a second anchor system so that we could again go down. And so we went down to the second one, and I was the second person down to the second one, because my job was then to set up the third anchor system. And when you set up the anchor system, you then descend using the rope, and then you act as the brake person for the people coming down. And so I had someone who was quite new to this with me, and so we left the small tabletop, descended down, then took our ropes and all our anchors that we needed, got everything set up, and as I was going through, I was testing my anchor, and then I'd get the person in training to check with me, and then we'd get all ready, and I said, okay, so I'm going to go down the bottom and act as the brake person, and you just make sure that people are connected on correctly. No worries. And so we had an area that was probably about 5 metres from where the anchor system was to where the rope then actually went over. And it was not quite sharp like this, a little more rounded, but it was still another 50-metre drop to the next point. And so I've grabbed the rope, the rope in this hand, the rope in this hand, walk back, and I was about to take my step off the edge. And when you're descending using a rope, that step is the point at which all your weight goes from the ground onto the rope. And it's really then just the tension of the rope that pushes you into the cliff. So as I'm about to step over the cliff, the trainee that I was with said, Brett, and I looked up and gave a grin, and he said, shouldn't you be connected in? And I looked down, and I'd set everything up, but there's a piece of equipment called a figure of eight. And for things to work, for the braking to work, you need to have the figure of eight, the rope pass through that figure of eight. And I was so focused on setting up the anchor system, making sure that my trainee was doing everything right, that I'd forgotten to hook in. And so it was really only my hands, and over 50 metres, that's not a good thing. And so my heart leapt into my mouth. I tried to play it off cool and said, good pickup. And
You're just training.
Took a step forward. But I'm not sure how convincing that was, whether or not they got it. But my focus was in the wrong place. My loss of focus. And I don't think it's an underestimation to say that potentially I would not be here today if I'd stepped over that edge. Like there might have been other options, but that's a very real possibility. And tonight we want to explore together the idea of feeding your focus. And there are a few ideas wrapped up in that. But what we put our attention on, what we invest our energy into, does determine the course that our life takes. It determines the course that our relationships take. Determines how effective we are in our work or business life, a lot of different ways. Losing focus can be devastating, can be tragic. And we are moving through a world right now where other people are trying to claim our focus, where other companies are trying to claim our focus. And it's very easy to move through this life distracted. And what ends up, I think, is we don't end up finding our way through this life at all. We're just stumbling and tripping from distracted moment to distracted moment. As you're watching this right now, perhaps you can call to mind a recent time where you've lost focus. It might to you be trivial. It might actually be quite a significant loss of focus. We'd love to hear from you. Comment if you like. If you're watching this with a group of friends, share this moment with your friends. Do you have a moment where you feel you've lost focus?
Yeah, I would kind of say it's a losing focus on the correct thing and focusing on the incorrect thing.
Yeah.
Because for me, I mean, I think for years I spent a lot of time focusing on the wrong thing, like on trying to prevent myself from getting hurt. So I'd put up walls that actually meant that I would get hurt.
Right.
And I wouldn't build good relationships because...
So you're talking about walls relationally.
Yeah, so
yes.
I would focus on what I did not want as opposed to what I wanted. And so in the process, what I didn't want kind of happened, but that's because I had the wrong focus.
Okay.
So instead of going, how can I be a good friend to someone?
Yeah.
I would be focusing on how this person's probably not going to be a good friend to me anyway, so I'm going to focus on self and self-preservation.
How can I protect myself?
Instead of being a good friend. And so then that, I think, wrong focus meant that I didn't build a good friendship when I wanted a good friendship.
Yeah,
so
right.
What I focused on actually, you know, in a roundabout way came true. Like I didn't have the good friendships that I wanted, and I pushed people away when what I really wanted was the opposite. But because I was focusing on the negative, I didn't get the good things. So,
So whether or not that's a loss of focus, certainly what you focused on had an outcome that you didn't want.
It was a loss of focus on the good thing that I actually wanted. Yeah.
And perhaps that's prompted some thoughts for you. There are lots of places that we can go to that will tell us what to focus on, how to focus. As we move through our lives, we have tendencies to focus. I mean, naturally, I have a short attention span and a short level of interest. I will, you can see the enthusiasm that you're nodding with. I can jump very quickly from one idea to another idea. I remember coming out of a meeting once, and a friend at the time was looking at me a little confused and gave me what I think might have been a compliment, I'm not sure. But they said, "You're the only person I know who can completely backflip in the space of 5 minutes and be equally convinced of both things." And because we just had a meeting and I'd led pretty strong with what I thought was right, and someone showed me a different way, and I went, actually, I think that's a better idea than mine. So there are some benefits in being short focused. Would you describe yourself as having a short or a naturally longer concentration?
Probably naturally longer.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
I can stay focused on something even if I'm not interested.
Yeah.
For a longer period of time than maybe some.
Yeah. And so if you wanted to let us know whether you feel you're short or long, just a comment. But even that plays out in our lives. There's a business guru that I follow who says if you cannot train yourself to sit down and concentrate on one idea for 8 hours, you will not achieve your goals. That ability to pick a focus. And so we can bounce these ideas off a lot of different places. We are drawing inspiration, as we so often do, from the scriptures. Actually, a letter written to a group of people who were trying to find their way through life, and they were drawing on faith.
Yeah.
And in their environment, lots of ideas were competing for their attention. And there's just a short paragraph that I want to share with you tonight, and it says this: "Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honour at God's right hand. think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. For you died to this life, and your real life is hidden with Christ in God. And when Christ, who is your real life, is revealed to the whole world, you will share in this glory. And so there is this way, there are lots of different ways of finding our way through this life. Your approach may be similar to mine. Grit your teeth and work harder, and that's how you get through it. Some other people, they might navigate this through by just withdrawing and avoiding. That may be a bit too confrontational, feel free not to comment there, but we find our ways to get through this life. But there is a new way, a different way, a way that says you can begin fresh. And you might be watching this at the beginning of your life as you're exploring school and university and all sorts of different friendships and expressions. And to you, everything is new. And I want to tell you that there is a way of living that you have not yet explored, that there is a new way of living. I know that for others of you, you're watching this and you perhaps feel closer to the midpoint than to the beginning. And things perhaps don't quite have that newness, and you might buy yourself a new handbag, you might update to the latest phone, and you think, well, that's something. And then I know that there are others of you who are watching this, and you feel like the midpoint of life is in the rearview mirror, and you're thinking, can anything be new? And yet there's a promise here of new life, that regardless of what has gone past, that there is the hope of a fresh beginning. And I want to tell you that this is not self-help, that this is actually a transformation that occurs through meeting someone. And that meeting here is with the creator of the universe. That meeting is with the God who stepped into this world, the one that we call Jesus. And that when you encounter Jesus, that there is a potential for new life, whether you are starting new, whether you are in the midpoint, whether you feel like that that the sun is starting to set on your life experience, that there is a hope for a new life. As you watch this, have you had that encounter? Have you started that new life yet? Because there is a way forward. And as we look at this letter, that the instruction that was given then says, since you died. And that's a reference to a physical death, that there's a moment in time, and we even celebrate it now in our calendar right now, that we commemorate this moment in our calendars. Every year at Easter, it's commemorated, where we say, we're remembering that there is someone who at one point in history stepped into this world, created a stir, it doesn't matter what you believe, created a stir in a little backwoods part of the world over a bit of dirt that has been contested and conquered and contested and reconquered for hundreds and thousands of years. And yet this one life made such an impact on the world that people still talk about it today. And see, there is a point at which you say, I am done with my life. I want something new. And then we see this metaphor, I have died to my old life, that I have encountered the source of all life. And from this point, I'm going to live that way. And that is what we are invited into. And he says it's about focus, that when you've had an encounter, it's so easy to let that slip away. So easy. You go out with friends and, perhaps you go out and you see a band and you have a great night, and then that night just slips into the background. I remember listening to a psychologist speaking this week, and they were saying that actually all we have is the moments in our past that we were present to. that when you're there at your friend's birthday and you're going through your work emails, or you're at your kid's birthday and you're thinking about that project that you've got to complete, that in a year's time when you look back, that won't even feature on your memories because you weren't actually present, because your focus was not where your body was, that your focus was somewhere else. But then when we go through our lives, we can also feel guilty about our loss of focus. But here's something, I think, a skill builder, is that if you want to build the ability to maintain focus, you should celebrate every time you get distracted. Because every time you get distracted, there's an opportunity to recognize you've been distracted and to return to your original focus. And those who study the mind will tell us that that process, recognizing and returning, is what strengthens our ability to live a life of focus. And that if I put that into practice, I've been distracted, instead of kicking myself and going, I missed it. I could have died. It's like, hey, I'm back. I'm still here. We can go again. We can get stronger. But see, there is this idea then of living a new life that has a different perspective and a different energy or a different power source. And as we explore this, it says, set your minds on things that are above. That set, that word of like becoming firm, of solidifying. Around the table this morning, someone used the illustration of concrete, that when you pour it in, it's powdery, and you add water that's runny and makes puddles. But if you mix it up and you let it cure, it sets. It becomes a solid, something that is robust enough to build houses, skyscrapers on. And what we're talking about here is setting our minds on a different way of living. I wonder what your mind is set on right now. As you're going through finding your way through life, perhaps you're confronted with financial difficulties, changing interest rates. Perhaps it's the weather that infects your business and that you're saying, what do I do? Is your focus a particular relationship in your life, that special someone who, when your eyes met across the room, or perhaps when they received your text message, that beautiful thing. And yet, we have an invitation to raise our focus, to set our thinking on something higher. And right here, the words that are used in this particular letter, they talk about setting our minds on the realities of heaven. That's an interesting phrase. Realities and heaven. Sometimes they're not words that you think about. You may think that heaven is a fantasy. You may think that heaven is really something only to contemplate when this life ends. That phrase, the realities of heaven, what does that mean to you?
For me, like as we're talking about it, I'm not thinking about it in a one day far off thing, because sometimes that's like, well, what has that got to do with anything today?
Yes.
But for me, it's thinking about the reality of Jesus and what he says and who he is. So the realities that I read, in the Bible, and as I had this encounter with Jesus, knowing how much he loves me, then focusing on what he wants me to do and how he wants me to live is kind of the way that I see that, and then the focus that I can have, that's the focus that kind of drives me through all of the other bits of my life. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the focus for you. Yeah. I would say similarly that if we trace this idea back, that the heavens were the place beyond. That the heavens and the earth, the ancient Hebrew writings talk about a place that is not here, but there. And yet, that understanding has shifted over time to not just be somewhere up there, But actually, this same Jesus entered our world and started to talk about heaven as something that is near, something that is, it's approaching. That heaven is actually something that can become a reality on this earth because of an encounter with the source of all life. Not just another person, although somehow he became that, but actually the source of all life, the source of all reality, the ultimate reality. And in that idea of the realities of heaven, I think we have this idea of love. That life is most beautiful when love is present. In a relationship, in a community. We might not go through our community and talk a whole lot about love, but we talk about compassion. That we want to have an inclusive society that welcomes those who are on the fringes, financially, socially, for a whole lot of reasons. And yet compassion is often just one public expression of what actually is motivated by love. That we, in an inclusive community, we want to see justice. We want to see, in our country, we have this idea of a fair go. The idea that everyone is worth respect, worth given an opportunity. And the idea of justice is really just love on a communal setting. We welcome. And so the realities here are wrapped up in the source of all life who somehow stepped into our lives. And there is a mystery there. But the invitation is to encounter the source of all life, to begin a new life, and to set your focus and energies on that life. That is the invitation. As you're watching this, you may be ready to lift your sights, to elevate your focus. As we've talked about encountering the source of all life, maybe you've realized that that is something that you want to experience right now. We want to help you with the beginning. And there's a simple prayer that we invite you to pray that simply says, Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. That new life that we talked about. As you watch this, if you're ready to take that step of faith, pray with us right now. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. And if that's a decision that you made, we would love to support you in any way we can. Drop us a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. Drop us a DM if you're watching this on our social channels. If you're coming through Southwest Sydney, we'd love you to join us and other friends around this table. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.